2 in the afternoon. A kitchen counter, a cardboard box from a drugstore, a newborn in nothing but a diaper, and thousands of strangers watching a man drag a cotton swab across the inside of a baby's cheek while the chat drowns in crying emojis. No stage. No envelope snatching. No security guard holding anybody back. And still, this might be the most consequential 30 seconds of Blueface's entire public life. Because whatever comes back in that prepaid mailer doesn't just answer a question. It ends one era. Or greenlights the next one. Yeah, we're getting into all of it. Quick thing before the swabs even dry. If you're the type who likes your tea with actual evidence in it, hit like, subscribe, tap the bell. When those results land, the autopsy happens right here. Let's get the skeleton on the table first. The what? A live-streamed, at-home paternity test. The who Blueface, Johnathan Porter, and Nevaeh Akira, plus their newborn son, Johnathan Jamal Porter Jr. The when? Wednesday, August 20th, 2026, 2 days after the couple announced the baby's arrival. The where? Their home, on stream, start to finish. The which? A $129 drugstore DNA kit. Nevaeh says she picked up that same morning. Paperwork, consent cards, 3 swabs, 30 seconds each. Sealed into a mailer with expedited shipping. Results. Reportedly 1 to 2 business days after the lab gets the package. That's the frame. Now the fingerprints. But before we press play on the fingerprints, sit with the frame for one more second, because the frame is doing more work than most viewers noticed. Consider the geography of the shot. Kitchen counter, not a bedroom, not a nursery, not a lawyer's office. The kitchen is the most domestic room in any American house. It's where people eat, argue, celebrate, and, historically, where family court got settled at the table before it ever went to a courthouse. Choosing a kitchen for this wasn't a coincidence. Kitchens read as home. Home reads as certainty. Certainty was the vibe they were selling. 10 minutes before the swabs even came out of their plastic sleeves. Set design is storytelling. And this set said family before anybody said a single word. Open the vault with the line blue lead with baby on the bed, dog somewhere off camera, chat scrolling. We're living the American dream, chat. We got the nice house with the dog. The American dream. Sure. White picket fence optional. Paternity kit included. Keep that sentence in your pocket. It's doing more work than it looks. Because think about who's saying it. This is a man whose last 5 years of headlines have been everything except the American dream. Arrests, evictions, courtroom appearances, on-camera altercations. The whole traveling circus of what tabloids used to call urban chaos, until the word chaos itself started sounding tired. And now, on a random Wednesday afternoon, that same man is standing in a kitchen using the phrase American dream unironically. That's not a slip. That's a positioning statement. Politicians use the phrase American dream when they want you to forget what they did last term. Rappers use it when they want you to forget what they did last album. The line wasn't for the chat. The line was for the algorithm, a seed sentence, engineered to be clipped, captioned, screenshotted, and recirculated as evidence of a new chapter. Watch the highlight reels, the fan pages, cut in the next 72 hours. I bet real money that sentence opens more than half of them. Meanwhile, Nevaeh came in swinging at the chat, not at him. I paid $129 for this. I didn't ask my man to buy it. I bought it. And right behind it, I'm tired of you playing with me. Okay. Noted. Underlined. We're coming back to that one, I promise. Because I'm tired of you playing with me is not a sentence you say to strangers in a live stream chat. Not really. That sentence has a specific target. And the target isn't the anonymous commenter who typed, not his baby, for the 17th time. That sentence is aimed at a person she's had that exact fight with before, off camera, probably more than once. When people say you in a live stream, they mean the room. When Nevaeh said you, her eyes said someone specific, whether that someone was Blueface, a family member, a friend who ran their mouth to the blogs, or an ex who won't stop demanding. We don't know. But we know it landed like a receipt, not a caption. Keep that in the pocket next to the American dream line. They're both direct addresses dressed up as offhand comments. Then there's the sentence I keep replaying, Porter, arms folded, watching her fill out the forms. Y'all see I'm not filling out anything. So I don't have the control of anything. All gonna go to him. I don't need to see. I ain't nervous. A man announcing how unbothered he is, unprompted, at 2 in the afternoon, on a live stream about whether a baby is his. Totally normal. Nothing to examine there. There's a term for this in negotiation psychology, preemptive denial. The other name for it is the tell. When somebody volunteers, without being asked, that they are not nervous, not filling anything out, not in control, they are inventorying every accusation they expect to face and defending against each one in advance. It's the verbal equivalent of showing up to a job interview and immediately saying, "I promise I'm not going to be late." Nobody accused you of being late. Why are you the one raising it? Nevaeh didn't ask him if he was nervous. The chat didn't ask if he was in control. He answered questions that hadn't been asked, which is always a signal about which questions live rent-free in a person's head. And buried in the counting and the chaos, a full-blown genetics argument broke out. Nevaeh, he don't look like me. Blueface, he does. Nevaeh, no, he doesn't. Look at the color that's going to come in on his ear. I have strong genes. Then Blue, later, almost sulking. All my kids kind of look like me. I thought I was going to have some type of part. Two grown people fighting over whose DNA is louder, while a literal DNA test dries on the counter. You cannot write this. I laughed, I'm not gonna lie. But peel that argument apart, because it's not the argument it looks like. On the surface, it's two proud parents playing, whose face wins. Underneath, it's a couple negotiating public credit for a child in real time. Nevaeh has to establish maternal presence. She carried this baby for 9 months. She wants that carried into the visible outcome. Blueface has to establish paternal claim, publicly, without saying the quiet part, because the quiet part is what the entire stream exists to answer. So the he looks like me tug of war is actually two people staking flags on a piece of land whose deed is currently being cotton swabbed into a mailer. The genetics fight is a proxy war for the paternity fight, and both of them know it. Neither one will say it. That's why they can laugh. Last one. And this one's not even about the baby. Porter jokes to Nevaeh's older son, Superior. I'm gonna swab you too. You might be my son too. Superior doesn't blink. No. I know my dad. Phew. Nah, actually, sit in that for a second. That boy has seen things. Moving on. Actually, one more beat on Superior before we move, because that kid is the thermostat of that entire room. Children read chaos faster than adults do. And Superior's answer wasn't just a comeback. It was a boundary. I know my dad. 3 words. No inflection. No smile. In a household where the adults are on stream measuring a baby's ear color for genetic clues, a boy old enough to speak clearly is drawing a line in permanent marker. I know where I come from. Do not sweep me into the plot. That is the most emotionally clear sentence spoken in the entire live stream. And the fact that it came from the only person in the room who didn't consent to being on camera, should probably tell us something about who the adults in the situation actually are. One more before we leave the quote bank, because it slipped past most people. Mid-swab, Nevaeh is filling out forms and asks Superior for a pen, and Blueface. Half to the camera, half to her goes. I know your info. Yeah, I know your social too. Her answer, without missing a beat. I'm the type that once you let me know you know mine, I got to know yours. Huh. On the surface, that's couple banter. Underneath it, that's two people publicly establishing how much they know about each other. In the middle of a procedure designed to establish what they don't. The subtext was doing cardio in that kitchen. And factor in the medium. Live streams don't have retakes. Every line said out loud is said in front of witnesses, which means every line said out loud becomes a receipt that either party can pull up later. I know your social is a joke, but it's also, functionally, a public disclosure of the depth of access this relationship has already granted. That's not a small thing. In a relationship that just started this year, where a baby has just been born, and where a paternity test is currently being executed on a countertop, mutual acknowledgement of that level of personal data access is, how do I put this? A very specific stage of intimacy to be announcing to a live audience. Whether they meant to broadcast it or not, they broadcast it. That'll be in a clip compilation by the weekend. Now connect the dots, because the order of operations here is the whole story. Start with the ghost in the room. Blueface and Chrisean Rock's saga kicked off back in 2020 and basically invented chaos as content for this generation. And in December 2023, he went public claiming a DNA test showed Chrisean Jr. wasn't his, a claim that was never independently verified, by the way, and that she disputed. Remember that. Paternity-ass plot twist is a genre he helped build. And build it he did, brick by public brick. Rewind to the run-up. The Crazy in Love reality show in 2023 turned their fights into episodic content, made their arrests into cliffhangers, and normalized the idea that a relationship could be an ongoing serial the audience tuned in for weekly. That show didn't invent messy couple television, but it modernized it, moved it off cable and into the algorithm, where the fights didn't need commercial breaks and the reconciliations didn't need a network's permission. By the time the 2023 DNA claim dropped, audiences had already been trained to consume the family as narrative. So when a father goes on record disputing paternity of the child he'd been publicly parenting, the internet didn't process it as a crisis. It processed it as a season finale. That's the machinery. That's the muscle memory the current stream is drawing on. Fast forward, April 2025. He evicts Chrisean after she goes public with college athlete Titan Newton. Nevaeh enters the picture. Pregnancy gets announced. And almost immediately, the rumor mill gets crowded. A man named Nova reportedly stepped forward claiming he could be the father and demanding Blueface call him. And, if the blogs are to be believed, even Nevaeh's best friend was out here claiming he'd taken a test of his own. Then, days before the birth, Blue goes on stream and says he doesn't even want a DNA test anymore. And then, August 18th, the baby arrives. August 20th, Nevaeh walks into a CVS, drops her own money, and runs the whole thing live. Sit with that 48-hour turnaround for a second. 2 days. 2 days between the baby is here and the swabs are on the counter. That's not a schedule. That's a countdown. Somebody was watching a calendar. And in the celebrity ecosystem, timing like that isn't accidental. It's the difference between letting a rumor metastasize for a week versus surgically removing it before it hardens. If they'd waited until, say, day 7, every gossip page would have had time to run their pre-written Blueface avoiding paternity test package. 2 days denied them the runway. The urgency wasn't emotional. It was tactical. Or Steelman, maybe it was both. Sometimes the fastest way to stop the room from talking is to hand them a microphone and take the podium yourself. Actually, hold on. Back up. Everybody's staring at the swab. Stare at the receipt instead. The part that matters isn't that a test happened. It's who paid for it, and how badly she wanted it out of her hands and into the mail. He says no test on camera. And within days there's a test, on camera, expedited shipping. Somebody changed a mind. Or somebody never needed his permission in the first place. And there's a third option nobody's floating. Maybe the no test statement was itself the misdirection. Announce publicly that you don't want the test. Watch the doubters get comfortable in that framing. Then reverse course on stream with your girlfriend holding the kit, and let the reversal itself become the content. If that's the play, it's the oldest one in the book. Manage expectations low, over-deliver on camera, harvest a surprise. Whether it was intentional or not, the sequence functioned exactly like that in the wild. Doubtcast on Monday, doubt crushed on Wednesday. 2 news cycles for the price of 1 story. That, I'm not filling out anything. Bit reads different now too, doesn't it? That's not laziness. That's negotiated jurisdiction. She runs the paperwork. He runs the reveal. Everybody on that stream had a job. Division of labor in a media production has a name. It's called a call sheet. And whether they wrote one down or not, the roles were precast. Nevaeh, producer, procurement, logistics, chain of custody, timeline enforcement. Blueface, talent, host, comic relief, on-camera decision-maker. Superior, unwilling supporting cast, comic timing, tension release. John Jr., the MacGuffin. Every good production has a MacGuffin, the object everybody is chasing that drives the plot. In this stream, that object was a paternity result. The baby was, functionally, the MacGuffin holder. That sentence sounds harsh. But watch the stream again with that lens, and tell me the framing isn't accurate. And while we're weaving, notice the choreography of the reveal itself. Nevaeh accidentally flashes the baby's face on camera. Minutes later, Blueface decides he's going to show the face on his terms. That's not spontaneity. That's rights management. An accident became a decision, became a moment. And it worked. Within hours, reaction pages were running side by sides of the newborn against his baby pictures, and the consensus, he's the twin, was doing PR no publicist could buy. The face reveal wasn't a blooper that got absorbed into the stream. The stream absorbed the blooper and monetized it. There's a difference, and it's the whole difference. Think about how a traditional celebrity would have handled that same accident. Publicist on the phone in seconds. Live stream cut. Statement drafted about protecting our son's privacy. Photo rights sold to a magazine 6 weeks later for a 6-figure fee. That's the old media playbook, and it still works. Beyoncé used a version of it with the Ivy Park reveal. The Kardashians ran a version of it for a decade. Blueface and Nevaeh looked at that playbook and threw it in the trash. Instead of monetizing the reveal on the back end through a magazine deal, they monetized it on the front end through the live stream itself. Views today, not licensing fees, 6 weeks from now. That's a generational shift in how celebrity images are sold. And whether you approve of it or not, the numbers say it's working. And one more thread, small but load-bearing, the shipping debate. Nevaeh wants it out the door immediately, same day, next day, whatever it costs. Blueface floats, waiting until Monday. She overrules him on camera, politely but completely. Again, paperwork, timeline, tempo, all hers. When people ask later who was steering this whole production, don't point at the man holding the baby. Point at the woman holding the mailer. Because the person who controls the shipping label controls the result date. And the person who controls the result date controls when the next live stream happens. Which means Nevaeh, in that moment, was scheduling the next episode of the show before the current one had even ended. That's showrunner behavior. Talent doesn't book the next taping. Producers do. She was doing both jobs, and Blue didn't seem to notice, or didn't seem to mind. Either read is interesting. Neither is neutral. Oh, and the timing collision nobody's threading together. The same week this American Dream domestic livestream airs, the other side of his public life is still smoldering. The manager war. The ex-saga. The old cast of characters is still out there holding microphones. This kitchen scene didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened as a counter-programming move, whether they consciously designed it that way or just instinctively understand the medium better than the people covering it. I'm leaning toward the second one. Honestly, that's scarier. Because instinctive media literacy is harder to counter than strategic media literacy. Strategy has fingerprints. You can trace a PR firm's playbook, spot the beats, predict the next move. Instinct has none. Instinct just wakes up on a Wednesday and says, let's do it today. And the timeline reorganizes itself around the decision because the decision happens to be the correct one. Blueface has been described a lot of things over the years, but the description that keeps getting undersold is media native. He was raised on smartphones. He built his career on Instagram Live. He treats a live stream the way a jazz musician treats a chord chart, as a suggestion, not a script. That's a competitive advantage traditional publicists can't teach and can't replicate. And the industry hasn't fully priced it in yet. Zoom in tighter. 3 lenses, 3 fragments. Lens 1, the fine print. That $129 kit? Scientifically legit, legally decorative. At-home tests use the same lab methods as court-ordered ones, but with no verified chain of custody. The results aren't admissible anywhere that matters. CVS's own listing calls it a private test. Discreet, not legal. So the purchase was never buying legal truth. It was buying narrative truth. The mailer is a prop that happens to contain real science. And here's why that distinction matters. Because in the court of public opinion, narrative truth outranks legal truth roughly 10-1. A judge can rule on paternity, and half the timeline will still argue about it. A live stream can imply paternity, and the same timeline will treat it as settled. The kit's inadmissibility in a real courtroom isn't a bug in this plan. It's a feature. Because if the result ever needs to be walked back, or supplemented, or challenged, the unofficial label built into the kit's packaging provides plausible deniability. And if the result confirms what the couple wants confirmed, the same unofficial label gets ignored by every fan page recirculating the clip. Heads, Nevaeh wins. Tails, Nevaeh doesn't lose. Whoever picked that particular kid off the shelf understood something about optionality that most reality TV producers spend years learning. Except, here's the twist nobody clocked. They swabbed each other on live. Thousands of witnesses watched each swab go from mouth to tube to mailer. That's its own chain of custody, arguably stronger than some clinic visits. Accidentally or not, the live stream I asked the verification. I had to sit with that one for a minute. Think about the epistemology of that. A traditional chain of custody is designed to satisfy a small room, a lab, a court, a legal counterparty. It's a document that fewer than a dozen people will ever read, but the whole system trusts it because the process is regulated. A live stream chain of custody works the opposite way. Zero regulation, zero certification, but hundreds of thousands of witnesses whose collective attention functions as verification through sheer redundancy. If any one of those swabs had been tampered with, the clip would be dissected frame by frame on Reddit by nightfall. In a strange way, mass surveillance has become its own quality assurance protocol. It's not admissible in a courtroom, but it's more transparent than most clinical procedures. That paradox is going to be studied by media scholars for years, and they'll credit some Ivy League researcher when it was a rapper in a kitchen who ran the experiment first. Lens 2, the tell. Go back to that line. I ain't never seen a lot of people say yes before when it come to me. 9 words with a ghost in them. He's been on the other side of a chat verdict before. The 2023 claim, the denial, the fallout. When the comments flooded in saying the baby's his twin, you could hear genuine relief leaking through the joke. That's not performance. That's a man exhaling. And that exhale carries a weight most viewers won't feel unless they've lived some version of it. Whatever you think of Blueface public choices, the man has been dragged for a lot of things, some earned, some rehearsed, some inherited. And the specific accusation of "that's not your baby" is a wound the culture keeps reopening on him specifically, in a way it doesn't for other public figures with equally complicated timelines. Some of that is because he handed the culture the shovel back in 2023. Some of it is because paternity doubt is the most efficient way to strip a black father of legitimacy in public discourse, a rhetorical move older than television, uglier than most people admit, and depressingly durable. When the chat, for once, showed up in his corner without needing to be convinced, you could see the corner of his mouth do a thing his voice was trying to hide. That's not a moment I can prove, but I saw it, and I think a lot of you saw it too. Lens 3, the audio. Did y'all catch the counting? 30 seconds per swab, out loud, on stream, and Blueface loses count midway through his own. I lost count for a second. Yeah, keep swabbing. Tiny moment, but it tells you the 30 seconds wasn't a lab requirement being honored. It was a bit being performed. The science was the set dressing. The stream was the show. He wasn't counting for the lab. He was counting for the clip. Lens 4, the paperwork itself. The consent card he wouldn't touch literally says, alleged father. Printed on a drugstore form. And the name on that birth announcement? Johnathan Jamal Porter Jr., a junior. Naming a baby junior is either the loudest claim you can make without a lab, or the loudest hedge you can walk back later. I read that birth post 3 times. Still can't decide which one it is. Maybe both. Because junior is doing double duty. On the affirmative side, it's a declaration. You don't name a baby after yourself if you're planning to renounce him. Juniors are, culturally, the paper signing before the paperwork gets filed. On the strategic side, it's an anchor. Even if the test came back ambiguous, the birth certificate would still read junior, which means every future headline would still read junior, which means the branding would already be locked in. That's not a father hedging. That's a father front-running. The name went on the announcement before the swab hit the cheek. Order of operations, again, matters. Somebody in that household made a decision before the official decision was in the mail. Lens 5, the audience arithmetic. Because live stream metrics don't lie the way tabloid narratives do. Rough numbers floating around the reaction pages suggested peak concurrent viewers in the tens of thousands, with the post-stream clip aggregation reaching orders of magnitude higher within hours. Compare that to the last time Blueface trended for something negative. A fraction of the reach, but with the audience carrying resentment. This stream inverted the trend line. Same magnitude of attention, but with the audience carrying affection. That's a rebrand in a metric a spreadsheet can measure. Whether it holds is a different question. But the moment it happened, it happened. Now, how did the outlets play it? Because the framing split is a story by itself. BCK Online went full pastel. A congratulatory birth announcement. Introduced newborn son. The DNA test tucked in like a fun family activity. Soft focus. Warm lighting. Nothing to see here. The gossip reel ecosystem went the opposite direction. Days before the swab, the caps lock framing was that Blueface, and no longer wants a DNA test, despite multiple men claiming paternity. Selling doubt, not diapers. Two realities, same couple, 1 week apart. And the Reddit corners? They keep a running ledger. Every new development gets pinned next to the 2023 claim, like the internet maintains a permanent file on this man's paternity lore. The framing split isn't neutral, either. It's a business decision. Pastel outlets need advertiser-friendly headlines to keep the CPMs high on brand-safe content. Doubt outlets need conflict to feed algorithmic outrage engagement. Reddit needs completeness because Reddit's culture rewards the receipts keeper. 3 different economic models, 3 different framings, 1 identical event. And every viewer scrolling through their feed encountered whichever version their algorithm had pre-decided they preferred. The stream didn't fragment reality. The distribution did. That's the story underneath the story. And it's the same story you'd find under almost every celebrity news cycle if anybody bothered to look. Now the pushback I already hear loading in the comments. Y'all are reaching. It's a happy family live stream. People do tests on camera for fun now. Fine. Steelman it. Maybe it really was just a wholesome afternoon. Except nobody accidentally broadcasts a legal adjacent procedure with a count-along, a receipt flex, a staged paperwork segment, and a poll question. Y'all think it's my baby? Aim dead at the camera. Every beat was a produced beat. That's not a family moment. That's a season premiere. And here's the tell you can measure. Count the direct-to-camera moments in the first 10 minutes. Wholesome family live streams tend to be conversational, angled, ambient. People talking to each other with the camera as a passive witness. Produced content flips that ratio. In this stream, both Blueface and Nevaeh broke the fourth wall. Direct address, direct eye contact with the lens, repeatedly, at rhythmic intervals. That's not how people behave when they forget the camera is on. That's how people behave when they remember the camera is the audience. The difference is subtle. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. And look, I want to be quiet for 1 second, because there's a baby in the middle of all this. John Jr. is, by every account, a beautiful, healthy kid who did not ask to be the plot. Whatever that lab says, his origin story is now content, archived, monetized, before he could hold his own head up. That's worth a breath before we go back in. And I don't say that as scolding. I say it as inventory. Because the honest thing to acknowledge is that this show, Fame Cryptics, all of us, participates in that archive. Talking about the swab is content. Analyzing the framing is content. Even the we should be quiet for a second beat is, in its own weird way, content. There's no clean position outside the ecosystem. The best we can do, the least we can do, is stay honest about what we're inside of. So acknowledged. Recorded. And when John Jr. is old enough to Google himself, and this video shows up in the search results, I hope at least he can tell that somebody in the panel remembered he was a person before he was a plot point. All right, back in. Here's what the press won't print. This was never a paternity test. It was a pilot episode. The mainstream read says Blueface is maturing. Present father. Soft era. Growth. And flip the frame. Flip it hard. At 29. After years of running the chaos economy dry, the crazy in love circus, the evictions, the public civil war with whack 100 over money and management, the whole Jaden Alexis chapter, the chaos has diminishing returns. You can only torch your own house so many times before the insurance stops paying. So we're living the American dream. Nice house with a dog isn't small talk. It's a mission statement. That's a rebrand announcing itself in real time. And rebrands in this specific industry, hip-hop, celebrity ecosystem, whatever we're calling it this year, follow a predictable arc. Phase 1, chaos. Phase 2, consequence, arrests, lawsuits, industry blacklists. Phase 3, silence. Phase 4, reintroduction. usually via family content, wellness content, or business content. Watch any male rapper's career over a 15-year window, and you'll see the pattern repeat. What's unusual about Blueface's version is that he's compressing the arc, going from phase 2 to phase 4 in a single live stream, skipping the silence entirely. That's either genius or premature. The next 6 months will tell us which. If the family content sticks, if John Jr.'s milestones become a recurring content pillar, if Nevaeh's presence stabilizes the public narrative, then the compression worked. If any of the old chaos vectors flare back up in the next quarter, the rebrand collapses and phase 4 gets restarted from scratch. Watch the pattern. It's not subtle. And Nevaeh, not a supporting character. The executive producer. She bought the kit. She expedited the shipping. She controlled the forums, the timeline, the narrative. The old daytime TV formula had the woman sprinting off stage in tears while a host chased her with an envelope. Nevaeh looked at that format and said, nah, I'll buy the envelope myself. Same day shipping. That inversion is the whole ballgame. She didn't wait to be cleared. She cleared herself on her own card in front of everyone. And here's the wider frame, because the Nevaeh move is part of a bigger shift in celebrity partner archetypes. The old model, the girlfriend or wife who reacts to whatever the celebrity partner does, wearing the emotional cost publicly, gaining sympathy but not agency. The new model, the girlfriend or wife who runs the narrative alongside the partner, wearing the strategic decisions publicly, gaining agency and, critically, an independent audience of her own. That shift didn't start with Nevaeh. You can trace it through Chrisean, through Jaden Alexis, through half a dozen recent partnerships in the space. But Nevaeh's execution of it is the most polished version yet. She didn't just co-run the stream. She architected the segment inside the stream where all the real information transfer happened. That is a level of media control most publicists dream about and can't teach. Some of y'all in the chat playing forensic scientist off an ear, by the way. Look at the color coming in on his ear. Is not a methodology. Be so for real. And to the he didn't even want to test crowd. You're staring at the quote and missing the behavior. He said he didn't want one, then swabbed on camera anyway. That's the loudest yes he's ever said. And the blog's covering this like a birth announcement with the cheek swab attached. Cute. Y'all covered the envelope and missed the premiere. Or maybe, and I keep going back and forth on this, maybe I'm handing them too much credit, and it really was just a random Thursday impulse. Nah, nobody impulse buys a paternity test with a live audience pre-assembled. This was choreographed down to the drying time. And let's talk about the grandma wisdom that got dragged into this. Be careful who you dislike when you're pregnant, because that's who the baby comes out looking like. Nevaeh floated it on stream like folklore, and people ran with it like scripture. Listen, I love the aunties. The aunties keep the culture warm. But a baby's ear tint is not a paternity ruling, and using old wives' tales as evidence in 2026, with a lab kit literally sitting on the counter, is the funniest kind of cope. The kit exists precisely because vibes are not admissible. And yet, Steelman one more time. The fact that folk wisdom keeps showing up alongside laboratory science tells you something about how communities process uncertainty. Vibes and swabs occupy different epistemic categories, sure, but they serve the same social function, reducing anxiety about paternity through externally verifiable signals. For thousands of years, the signal was resemblance, and committees, and community memory. For the last few decades, it's been chromosomal analysis. Both systems can be right. Both systems can be wrong. And in the same kitchen, on the same afternoon, both systems were running in parallel. The aunties debating ear color in the comments. The lab kit sealing in the mailer. That's not backward. That's continuity. Cultures don't replace old tools. When they get new ones, they stack them. The envelope didn't shrink. The stage did. So where does it go from here? 3 roads, all future tense. One more before we go. To the camp saying, a real man would have done a clinic test quietly. Quietly? In this economy? The whole point was the audience. A private result can be disputed forever. A public swab with thousands of witnesses closes the case in the court that actually governs these people's lives, the timeline. Whether you respect that or hate it, it was the correct move for the game they're playing. Reluctant respect. There. I said it. Because quietly is a value from an older media ecosystem, one where reputation could be managed through the absence of information. That ecosystem no longer exists for anybody with a public profile above a certain threshold. Silence, in the current attention economy, is interpreted as guilt. Absence is interpreted as avoidance. The only way to actually neutralize a rumor is to oversaturate the counter-narrative until the rumor becomes uneconomical to keep repeating. That's what the livestream did. It made "He's Not the Father" a claim that had to compete against thousands of hours of watched, screenshotted, clipped footage of "He's the Father." In market terms, they flooded the supply. That's an economics move disguised as a family moment. And it worked. Now, forward. Only forward. Most likely, by early next week, the lab posts, the result drops, and if it matches what that ear debate already decided, expect a second live stream. The reveal episode. The yes comments become a victory lap. The family content scales up fast. And don't be shocked when a reality or streaming pitch surfaces before John Jr. is a month old. Also pencil this in. Within 48 hours of any result, Whack 100 finds a microphone. Whatever it says. Count on it. And pencil this in too. The second live stream will be structured differently from the first. First stream was procedural, forms, swabs, counting. Second stream will be ceremonial. Envelope on the counter. Chat holding its breath. Some kind of unveiling beat that mimics the daytime TV format they inverted last time. Expect Nevaeh to control the tempo again. Expect Blueface to control the reaction. Expect Superior to be nowhere near the camera because his mother learned from the last one. And expect, this is the specific prediction to timestamp, a piece of merchandise, a branded moment, or a brand integration cameo to appear within the reveal stream itself, because the audience they built in Stream 1 is now monetizable inventory for Stream 2. If I'm wrong, roast me in the comments. If I'm right, screenshot this segment. The flip, watch the delay vacuum. Shipping windows, lab backlogs, we're still waiting posts. And into that silence step every sideline character. Nova's camp resurfaces. The best friend re-ups. Chrisean goes live. Somebody demands a court-admissible test, and suddenly the $129 verdict gets branded unofficial. And here's the failure prediction for the doubters. If it's a match, they're whole. That's not his baby. Economy collapses overnight, but they won't concede. They'll pivot to something new within one news cycle. Keep an eye on those goalposts. They're already packing a U-Haul. And a third road nobody's mapping, the ambiguous result. What if the test comes back with a probability figure that's technically conclusive, but rhetorically fuzzy? At-home kits typically report a probability of paternity as a percentage. And depending on how the audience interprets that percentage, both camps could claim victory. In that scenario, expect a supplementary test, court admissible, chain of custody verified, offered voluntarily by the couple as a follow-up gesture, which would then be filmed, streamed, and monetized as a Season 2 premiere. The paternity plot doesn't have to resolve in a single episode. Modern content architecture prefers arcs to conclusions. And this couple has demonstrated they understand modern content architecture. 5 years out, the residue is cultural. Paternity as content becomes a permanent vertical. The envelope reveal finishes its migration from daytime television to the timeline. And some teenager in 2031 treats a swab kit like a prop the way this generation treated lie detectors. And the part that lingers, two boys, John Jr. and Chrisean Jr., growing up with origin stories that are searchable, clipped, and monetized before either of them could spell their own names. The genre wins. The kids pay the syndication costs. And 10 years out, because the further you project, the clearer the pattern gets, the format itself becomes generic. What Blueface and Nevaeh executed on August 20th, 2026 will look, in retrospect, like an early prototype of a genre. Other couples will copy the format. Some will do it better. Some will do it worse. A few will do it disastrously. Live stream paternity tests that fail on camera, publicly, ending relationships in real time. And those failures will feed the same content ecosystem that celebrates the successes. Content abhors a vacuum. And once a genre proves it can generate attention, the genre stops being a choice for the people inside the ecosystem. It becomes an obligation. Refuse to live stream your paternity test in 2031, and the audience will assume you're hiding something. That's the future being built one kitchen counter at a time. And the aftershock has a second layer, the economics. Every kid born into this ecosystem, from here on out, arrives with a pre-installed audience. John Jr.'s first week of life already outdrew most rappers' album rollouts. That's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Not the swab. The view count on the swab. Think about the endorsement economy that number implies. A newborn with more attention than the mid-tier album releases by any advertiser's math. An infant influencer. Baby brands know this. Formula companies know this. Diaper companies, stroller companies, insurance companies, kid content platforms. They all have media buyers who saw the same view count you did and started running a spreadsheet. The kid will be marketed to before he can say his own name, and marketed through before he can consent to any of it. Whether that's opportunity or exploitation depends on how the parents and the platforms structure the incoming deals, and whether we, as a viewing audience, sustain enough attention on the ethics of it to keep the guardrails visible. I'm not optimistic, but I'm not fully cynical either. Ask me again in 5 years. The results close a question. They don't close the show. And shows, as this family keeps proving, always get renewed. All right, verdict time. Before that envelope opens, get in the comments and call it on the record. Father or not, right now, because wrong answers get revisited around here. Like the video, subscribe, bell on. The second those results drop, part 2 is loading. Fame cryptics. We don't guess. We wait. And then we know.